when you see Western central banks blowing their currency apart like they are with just never-ending borrowing, gold is going to shine, and it's finally having its day. So I guess we should have expected.
Did you know that silver prices have surged near $31 despite ongoing uncertainty in the markets? The stage is set for a massive move that could see silver skyrocketing in value. And no, this isn't just speculation. Experts are pointing to critical factors like soaring inflation and upcoming Fed decisions that could send silver prices through the roof. If you're thinking about your next investment move, you need to hear this. Stick around, because we're about to break down why silver could be on the cusp of an unprecedented rally, and it could happen faster than you think.
You know, we've got central bank buying. You've got runaway U.S. debt levels with, runaway interest on U.S. debt levels. So we're kind of financing burning fiat currency with more burning fiat currency. And I think that's why gold gets into this positive loop. You can see other Western countries doing the same thing. And, really just that theory of kind of blowing apart fiat currency at the expense of gold. So those vibes keep getting stronger and stronger, and there's more and more, international buying. And, so there we are at a new all-time high. Gold is in the mode right now where the breakout is starting to run. I wouldn't doubt that the pace continues for a while until it gets, to a level where more people are talking about it. But right now, nobody really is talking about the price of gold trading all-time highs other than like the gold buggy type of people. So I think until that sentiment goes from being, nowhere on the radar screen to being way, way overbought and totally saturated, we're going to be in for quite a ride to come in gold. I think it gets to 3,000 in pretty short order. So we'll see what happens.
As we look at the recent surge in silver prices, one of the biggest factors at play is inflation. Just last month, the U.S. Consumer Price Index, CPI, numbers came in hotter than expected, showing inflation is far from cooling down. Core inflation jumped to 3.3%, slightly higher than the previous reading of 3.2%. What does this mean? Historically, when inflation rises, investors flock to precious metals like silver to protect their wealth from eroding purchasing power. What's interesting here is that inflation isn't just about food and energy prices. We're seeing significant increases in areas like medical services and transportation, and this is making investors nervous. They're turning to assets like silver to hedge against these rising costs, and it's no wonder. With inflation not easing up anytime soon, the demand for silver as a safe haven investment is growing fast. But here's the real kicker. This rising inflation, paired with other factors we'll discuss, is creating the perfect environment for a massive silver breakout. With prices already nearing $31, it's only a matter of time before inflationary pressures push them even higher. Now, here's the big question. Could this be the start of silver's meteoric rise?
I think, it's starting to go up faster the farther it goes up, and I am expecting there to be some kind of an actual chase to get into the gold markets at some point. I think that, it's starting to make more and more sense for portfolio managers to potentially, adjust their allocations to gold and to gold miners and things like that. So, I think that that's what we're moving towards in the markets and that type of phenomenon. So time frame to get to 3K probably happens in the first half of next year, if not sooner. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And who knows? It might still be in great shape when it gets there. It might be a little bit overextended, but I'm trying not to pick a number, and I'm trying to just stay with gold in terms of, kicking the tires on making sure that it's still the right position to be in. And, as long as we continue to, pile on our national debt and pile on the financing of it, and central banks keep buying, and, there's a lot of reasons to stay with gold right now. Like there's a lot of reasons to stay with alternate currencies like Bitcoin and things like that. It's just when you see Western central banks blowing their currency apart like they are with just never ending borrowing, gold is going to shine, and it's finally having its day. So I guess we should have expected this for a while now.
Now, let's talk about another critical factor that could send silver prices soaring: the Federal Reserve. The Fed plays a pivotal role in shaping the future of silver, and right now, all signs point to a shift that could be a major catalyst for silver's breakout. Investors are closely watching the Fed's next move, and there's strong speculation that they'll cut interest rates by 25 basis points in the next meeting. Why does this matter? Well, when the Fed cuts interest rates, it usually weakens the US dollar, and when the dollar weakens, precious metals like silver become more attractive to investors. Think of it this way: a weaker dollar makes silver more affordable and appealing, especially to global investors. This triggers higher demand, which could drive silver prices even higher. We've already seen silver react to this expectation, climbing near $31. But what happens if the Fed actually follows through with the rate cut? It could set the stage for a significant rally in silver prices, as investors seek refuge in stable assets amidst economic uncertainty. So the question now becomes, how soon will the Fed act? And when they do, will silver's breakout happen immediately? The clock is ticking, and every day brings us closer to that pivotal moment.
So that's well framed. I've been an S&P bull since November of last year. I sold out of the position in July of this year, very close to the market top the first time. So that was around, probably at these levels. And really, I'm kind of getting back to being bullish again. Quite honestly, we've lived through two major scares recently in the stock market. Essentially, we had that triple whammy where there was the yen carry unwind, there was the NVIDIA bubble beginning to unwind, and there was the curve steepening that knocked the S&P down to 5,100, at the lows. And then the market shot right back to the highs and backed off again as we went into this growth scare, right? Economic growth scare, China, big slowdown here in the US. And we experienced some volatility with that as the Fed pivoted toward a big easing cycle. And so, there was reason to be concerned that the beginning of the easing cycle might have meant the top of the market, since we were raising rates and the market was going along with it, et cetera, et cetera. So, you worried about a sell the fact event, and now the market's lived through that. It's gotten back on its feet. Technology has stabilized. We're seeing a lot of commodities and commodity space type of moves happening where they're coming to life now and kind of catching up on the year. So it's hard to be neutral even in the stock market when all of a sudden cyclicals are performing and tech is performing and rates are going lower. And I think, if you listen to the Traders Almanac guys, the Fed has cut rates with the stock market at all-time highs 21 times now, with the last time being the 21st. And I think 12 months later, all 20 times, stocks are higher. So, we kind of lived through all the sell the fact events. The market, the S&P is doing its job, sorting out winners and losers and coming out on top. And, if we pop through this old, high point of the range at around 57.60 or 70, through there, the stock market should run to 6K. There's been a lot of consolidating for several months now, and a break at the top of the range should mean a move to a higher range. So that's kind of what I'm looking for into the end of the year.
While many investors are focused on silver's price in US dollars, they're missing a much bigger story. The reality is silver is already in a global bull market. That's right, silver has been hitting all-time highs in several major currencies around the world. In places like the Indian rupee and Australian dollar, and even the Canadian dollar, silver has already surged past previous records. For example, in India, silver demand is skyrocketing. Both retail investors and the general public are hoarding physical silver as a hedge against inflation and economic uncertainty. In Australia, silver has broken through its historic highs from 1980 and 2011, which signals strong confidence in silver's future in both emerging and developed economies alike. And in Canada, Silver is just inches away from hitting a new all-time high. So why is this important for you? Well, if silver is making these massive moves globally, it's only a matter of time before the US dollar version catches up. The focus on silver in USD can be misleading because it paints a picture of lagging performance. But when you look at silver priced in other currencies, the breakout is already happening. The US could very well be next in line. This global momentum is building, and with each passing day, the pressure is mounting. So the question is, how much longer before silver in USD joins this global bull run?
Well, I like my view was I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to see whether the Fed cut 25 or 50. I wanted to see how the market reacted to that. And there were some initial reactions that indicated there might have been a change in the trends that were going on. Like there was a reversal in the dollar and a reversal in gold. The dollar reversed higher, gold reversed lower on the day of the FOMC. So you thought that could have been the end of the trends that were running for such a long time, or at least for the several months prior. And the trends took right over the next day, meaning the dollar index turned and went back down again. Gold turned and made a new high 2 days later after the reversal day. So that was the trends taking over, in my opinion. And so it feels like a kind of similar thing can happen in stocks where, we're getting through this uncertainty period of how dovish the Fed is going to be. And we got the first rate cut, and it's turning out that the market is holding in just fine. So my idea is that we're probably going to resume the rally that we were in for the first several months of the middle part of the year.
One of the most compelling reasons silver is set for a huge breakout is its growing industrial demand. Unlike gold, which is primarily a store of value, silver plays a crucial role in the production of a wide range of technologies, especially in the green energy sector. From solar panels to electric vehicles, silver is an essential component due to its unique conductive properties. The demand for solar energy alone has skyrocketed in recent years, with silver being a key material in the photovoltaic cells that capture sunlight. As the world moves toward cleaner energy solutions, the need for silver is expected to increase dramatically. In fact, projections show that industrial uses could soon account for the majority of silver demand, putting immense pressure on supply. This isn't just speculation. Industrial silver consumption has been rising steadily, and with more countries pushing for renewable energy initiatives, the demand is set to grow even more. What does this mean for silver prices? Well, when demand for a resource spikes and supply remains limited, prices typically soar. And in the case of silver, this industrial demand could be the catalyst that sends prices surging beyond what anyone expects. The real question here is, with silver being such a critical component in the technologies of the future, how long before the market fully recognizes its value and drives prices upward?
I'm a firm believer that the polls being even remotely close right now is a psyop. I don't believe for a moment that Kamala Harris has got the same odds of being elected president with no track record and no policies whatsoever, almost other than sort of constrictive Soviet-style communist policies. So I think that would be an actual disaster for the stock market. I think the S&P could go down 30% if she gets elected. She's talking about running on a platform of, censorship and authoritarianism and taxing unrealized gains and things like that. And, if those even get a breath of air, that's an absolute disaster for the stock market, right? There's nothing to talk about. You just have to think about it, right? What are people going to do with the assets that they have if they're forced to pay taxes on unrealized gains? They're going to sell them. Nobody wants to pay all those taxes and have to worry about the math year in and year out. So that's a big hit to capitalism, if you ask me. And I don't think that the market believes that she's going to win, judging from the way that it's going to be behaving. I think the market probably sees the truth a little closer, that Donald Trump is probably a much clearer front runner, since the economy did great and the stock market did great while he was in office. And, he's going to do all the things that are probably good for the stock market, like drill, baby, drill, and keep interest rates low. And God knows what could happen with the S&P if he gets elected again. Obviously, everybody's just wondering if the margin of victory is going to be big enough to steal the election, or that's not going to be possible. So I think that the market's telegraphing a Trump victory. I think a Trump victory would be very bullish. I think it'll rock the oil market initially, because I do think gas prices and oil prices will come down under the Trump administration. But I think that the stocks are probably set up to do very well in terms of generating solid earnings and outperforming earnings. So I think that maybe in energy stocks, there's a dip that you can buy, and those stocks wind up doing well by the time the market gets back on its feet, kind of thing. So a little bit of a mix.
There's a growing belief among investors and market analysts that silver's price has been artificially suppressed for years. This theory suggests that certain market forces, including major financial institutions, have kept silver undervalued to serve their own interests. If this is true, the silver market could be on the verge of a dramatic price correction, and when it happens, the breakout could be far bigger than anyone expects. Think about it. Silver has been lagging behind other precious metals like gold, even though it has tremendous potential. Many investors are starting to wake up to this reality. As more people become aware of silver's true value, demand could spike rapidly. This could lead to a situation where silver prices not only catch up but completely overshoot previous highs. The suppressed price narrative also ties into global market dynamics. In currencies outside of the US dollar, silver has already been making significant gains. Once this momentum hits the US market, and have received suppression lifts, silver could experience a meteoric rise. This begs the question, what happens when the lid finally comes off? Could silver's price explode overnight, catching even seasoned investors off guard?
I'm not a recession chaser, right? And I'm also not an economist. So take what I say about the economy with a grain of salt. But I feel like the Fed has done a great job managing expectations, and if they want to get ahead of any weakness that they're seeing in the economy, they may have already managed, the worst of the economy before our eyes, at least in terms of what kind of interest rate cuts we're expecting and how dovish the pivot has been. So since they're really good at managing expectations, I'm going to guess that they probably manage expectations lower, kind of beyond where they need to be on the economy, so that they're kind of upside surprises for the market to celebrate, and in my opinion, like, we had the recession, and it was like long ago when we had like those 2 negative quarters of GDP growth in a row during the Biden administration. And, that's what the bond market has historically called a recession. And we saw it, and it was over. And that's when everybody in the world and like economists were like, well, we can't really call that a recession, because it was a bad look for Biden. So the reality was the recession happened. The yield curve was inverted a long time ahead of it and a long time after it. And now that the yield curve is steepening again, that's been associated with volatility in the markets. And we've seen the volatility in the markets kind of living through the steepening. So that to me is, saying as long as the economy doesn't come completely undone from here, that the S&P might be able to hang in there, given a weaker economy and change in policy by the Fed towards easing. And if the Fed is going to address it with lower interest rates, the economy is going to stay on its feet, and so is the market. That's, I think, what they're trying to accomplish, and probably what they'll get.
One of the key reasons silver often gets overlooked is because of its complicated relationship with gold. Gold is typically seen as the safer, more stable investment, especially during times of economic uncertainty. Central banks around the world are hoarding gold as a hedge against fiat currency devaluation, and its price has recently hit all-time highs. But what about silver? Historically, silver and gold tend to move in tandem, but silver's behavior is more volatile because it plays a dual role, not just as a precious metal, but also as an industrial commodity. Some investors assume that silver should follow gold's upward trajectory, but that's not always the case. In fact, silver's industrial use in things like solar panels and electronics makes it more vulnerable to market fluctuations. However, here's where things get interesting. When gold starts making headlines for reaching new highs, silver often follows. This is because silver is still seen as the poor man's gold, and when gold becomes too expensive, investors turn to silver as a more affordable alternative. As gold continues to shine in the spotlight, more eyes are shifting towards silver, and this shift in sentiment could trigger a massive surge in silver's value. So, could we be on the brink of seeing silver's price follow gold's path in heights? With gold continuing to rise, it's only a matter of time before silver catches up, and when it does, the gains could be extraordinary.
I'm not like a value investor. Like I said, I'm a trader, so I really don't care about price to earnings multiples and things like that. I think those get people caught up in trying to sound smart when the reality is that, trading last sale and price action and technical breakouts and momentum and pattern recognition is really how I make my money. So it's I can stay bullish the stock market because the stock market does unbelievable things technically. Right, we had a steep sell-off to the 200-day moving average. Then we had a less steep sell-off to the 100-day moving average. So the S&P was carving higher lows, and now here we are back at the highs after those two events, which is what you would expect. And if you would expect it to break through the recent highs after making higher lows and holding those moving average support levels, like I do and like any technician should in a bull market, I would expect it to continue higher again. And so, if you want to get caught up in what you think the market is deciding the stock market is worth and putting a top number on that and saying, okay, it's not going to be worth any more because we're at this value level, go ahead, but you're probably not going to make any money. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably not going to see things breaking out and be able to go with them and things like that because you're thinking the stock market is fully valued. And there you are putting yourself at a disadvantage in a bull market, which can go on way longer than anybody would ever believe. And that's what we're in the middle of now. So it's like, if the S&P is built to survive, all these economic trials and tribulations and higher rates and lower rates and this and that, it's doing just that. So I don't really have much use for valuation and things like that.
Now, the big question on everyone's mind: when will silver finally break out? The technical analysis suggests that silver is approaching a critical point. For months, silver has hovered near key resistance levels, particularly around $31 in the U.S. dollar market. But with inflation rising, the Fed likely cutting rates, and global demand surging, it seems inevitable that silver will break through. Analysts are pointing to silver's chart patterns, and they're seeing the telltale signs of a coming breakout. We've seen silver form a double top at $31, but what happens next could be the catalyst that pushes it well beyond that mark. A breach of these resistance levels could trigger an influx of buying from investors who've been waiting on the sidelines. And when it happens, silver could rise sharply, leaving those who didn't act in time scrambling to catch up. Timing is everything in the markets, and with silver nearing this pivotal moment, the breakout could come sooner than most expect. All the pieces are falling into place, and as more investors realize the opportunity silver presents, the window to get in at current prices could close quickly.
An animal, quite honestly. I mean, it wants to tag along as a precious metal, and it just may, especially if gold stays this strong. But to me, the game is about staying in gold because of the destruction of fiat currency. I mean, silver is obviously, a precious metal. It's very much, though, become an industrial metal as well, with the use in solar panels and things like that. So it's kind of a hybrid metal to me. If you want to trade silver, make sure you're trading it for the right reasons. If you're buying silver because gold is going up, and you expect silver has to go up a like amount or on a similar trajectory, I would be very careful with that line of thinking. They're not the same exact commodity. They don't have the same characteristics. They don't have the same they don't really have the same players in the markets. So, yeah, silver may go along for the ride because it's a precious metal, but I'm sticking with the gold trade, and silver is just kind of a noise, have kind of a noise cancellation policy because it really is a rich man's casino. And at any time during this bull run in precious metals, or say, let's put it this way, at any time during this never-ending bear raid on fiat currency, at no point would I expect the bottom to fall out of gold, whereas at no point would I be shocked at all if the bottom fell out of silver. While we're in this mode here where, we're running up our national debt, central banks are buying gold, the Saudis are trying to secretly buy gold. While we're in this positive flywheel for gold and precious metals, it wouldn't shock me if I woke up one morning and silver was $15 an ounce instead of 32, right? And everybody was like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And like the answer would be like, "Of course that happened. It's not gold. It's not the same thing. It doesn't have the same support for it as the gold market." So, that's just one of my kind of philosophies, having been around trading those metals for my entire career.
All the signs are pointing to one thing. Silver is poised for a massive breakout, and conditions for it are more favorable than ever. The combination of rising inflation, a weakening U.S. dollar, the Fed's potential rate cuts, and skyrocketing global demand is setting the stage for what could be an explosive surge in silver's price. Let's not forget silver is already in a bull market in many global currencies, hitting all-time highs in countries like India and Australia. This isn't just a theory anymore. Silver's strength is being recognized around the world. And while it's lagging behind in USD terms, that gap won't last forever. The technical indicators are clear. Silver is on the verge of breaking through its resistance, and when it does, the gains could be extraordinary. The suppressed price narrative also adds fuel to the fire. If market forces that held silver down for years are starting to loosen, we could see a rapid correction that takes silver to levels most investors aren't prepared for. And as gold continues to rise, it's only a matter of time before silver follows suit, possibly even outpacing gold's growth in percentage terms. In conclusion, the silver breakout isn't a matter of if, but when. The pieces are all in place, and the window of opportunity is closing fast. For investors looking to protect their wealth and capitalize on silver's potential, now might be the time to act. But as always, remember to do your own research and consult a financial advisor, because this video is for informational purposes only. It's not financial advice. And before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next deep dive into market trends and investment opportunities. Stay ahead of the curve.
The big axe that I've had to grind in the last couple of weeks is that commodities are going from extremely offered and thrown out like the baby with the bathwater to they're morphing into a phase where they're going to be really well bid during a Fed easing period, a weak dollar period, and nobody is positioned for that right now. In fact, I think they're the other way, where there are still probably big shorts out there in a lot of base metals and in the energy space because everybody's expecting a recession. And now that we've got the Fed on an easing path to combat that and China on a stimulus path to combat that, if you're still looking for that, economic weakness to unfold, I think you're now looking in the wrong direction. Because it's getting the address that it needs from central banks, and the effect of expecting all of that weakness is already all over the tape. Oil went from 85 to 65 from June 1st to, the last couple of months. There is the economic divot priced in right there. So if you think that it's going further from there, even with China stimulus and U.S. easing, we need that view in the market so people can express an opposite view. But I don't think that view works out.